Hi, this is David with entry number 681, 82. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm just coming out of, or I'm not just, but today I saw Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and yeah, I thought I'd just review it for today's entry. What's interesting, I think, about the kind of the story of Star Wars is that it's not like supposed to be, I don't think, like a amazing like drama or an amazing like action movie. If you look at really the origins of what George Lucas had in his head when he thought of the concept, it was more like he wanted to do sort of teleplay like John Carter of Mars, which was like a really old kind of serialized, I think, maybe novelized story by the same guy who wrote Tarzan. So a lot of the kind of ideas that are used within Star Wars are also, obviously, if you know anything about Star Wars, they're very much kind of like these kind of what are called archetypes. And I don't want to divulge too much, but there was a psychologist, I believe, by the name of Young, who kind of devised these archetypes, or kind of models that certain people, or maybe all people, fall into. And so there was another guy named Joseph Campbell who really wrote about and kind of even more deeply went deeper into kind of the idea of the archetype of storytelling and life. And so I think with this movie, you saw kind of almost like a reimagining of the kind of universe that Star Wars takes place in. It is essentially a remake of the first movie. And for a while, Hollywood was really into these things called reimaginings. You have the same plot, the same characters, but you kind of twist it and modernize it in a way that is supposed to be like different. And this movie is really kind of like that. The plot is essentially the same within the film. There's these plans for a base get put into a droid and given to like a new kind of lost young person who has to go on a mission to return the plans to kind of a rebel force. And that's really what it is, both with Star Wars, A New Hope and Force Awakens. And I think on that front it was formulaic, but in a pleasant way. Sometimes formula can be good. Like you eat a Chips Ahoy cookie in the US, and I can eat one here in Korea and it tastes the same. And I think, of course the Chips Ahoy cookie is never going to blow you away, but when you want a Chips Ahoy cookie, you want a Chips Ahoy cookie, and it satiates you in a way that I don't think even a really awesome cookie could fill you up in that manner. So plot was good. In terms of acting characters, it was decent. Actually, no, it was very good. I shouldn't say decent. We all kind of knew that Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill were all coming back for this film, and we knew kind of, if we followed the film really closely, we knew that Mark Hamill's role was not super involved, and that's exactly kind of how it played out in the film. And seeing all the old characters was fine, And like, I don't know if you know this, but Harrison Ford really kind of throughout his career after Star Wars and Indiana Jones, he really hated Star Wars for a long time. I think he had like a grievance against the film because it kind of warped his career, and he really didn't like Star Wars fans. He really was really like kind of nasty whenever anyone brought up Han Solo. But I guess they either threw him in a funny or talked to him in a certain way that got him to come back. And he was very good. He was probably of all the old characters, the person in the film the most. And I think his arc was justified, and I think it will be justified in the upcoming films. So, and speaking of, I'm sorry, bad segue, but of the new characters, I think they were all good. It's not, they are, actually, that was the kind of the only part of the plot that really kind of differs from the original film, was that the new three, the new trio, I should say, are very, like, I think different. Sure, there's a strong female, but I think they offer some things that the original cast doesn't really give you. And but I thought on the whole they were pretty cool. Like some people might decry, like, I don't know. I don't think anyone would decry, but they do use there is a black guy that's like kind of one of the new mains, and I think some people would question kind of Disney or Lucasfilm or whoever owns Star Wars brand in terms of like why it happened. But really, we all know that it's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter at all. But it didn't feel shoehorned, which was the most important thing when they do casting, any casting, regardless of race or gender. None of the new cast felt like they were just there to be kind of seen as something different. Overall, I thought they were good. In terms of effects and stuff, it was tremendous. Like, obviously they probably sunk hundreds of millions of dollars in the film, and probably a large chunk of that, maybe 40%, was spent on effects. It is an effects-driven film, I would say, and for the most part they're flawless. You do kind of notice it in a few of the characters that are more computer generated, and it did kind of throw me off for a little bit seeing Chewbacca's face. That was a little weird because it was all, his body was a costume, but his face was a computer thing. Anyway, though, it was a very, very good fidelity in terms of like effects and stuff. I wouldn't say I had any reservations. On the whole, it was a very good film. I don't think I don't regret seeing it. I did not see it at a cheap matinee time, so I can still say that it was well worth the money. Although I'm probably going to have to see it again because I did very much enjoy it, and I just kind of want to see it again. Maybe I'll see it at the big theater, but overall, it was very good. If you get a chance, obviously this is something that you should see as an American, just because it's such a worldwide phenomenon, and it's kind of something that I think it sounds kind of silly, but it's just a big enough deal that I think it's kind of I could say almost a duty to go see this film. Now, for a brief aside, I want to talk about something that I noticed and had actual confirmation on, and that is the fact that Korea does some kind of underhanded thing with the films, the art films, but no, the art of films, and that is they purposefully cook the books essentially in terms of figures and inherent ability of films to make money. What they do is that they actually restrict foreign films from getting more kind of screens and times, showings, than domestic. And domestic obviously being Korean films made by Korean production companies with Korean actors, and so they actually give those films more screenings, more like help than foreign films like Star Wars. So at the theater I saw, there was actually more showings for another new Korean movie called Himalayas than there was for Star Wars. Star Wars is a worldwide, like I said, like a world beater, like an iconic thing, huge deal. Like I can't really state how big of a deal Star Wars is in terms of world culture almost, which sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And this other film is getting more plays, more showings, more screenings than the brand and the brand of Star Wars. And it's just like kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But anyway, that's all for today. I am, we're coming up on about 2 weeks out from New Year, from 2016, and I am probably going to go back to everyday entries for various reasons, which I won't get into now. But I think starting maybe next week, maybe next week, or maybe a week and a half, I'll start going back to every single day, because, I'll get into that maybe in the this weekend's entry. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and there's a lot of things I want to discuss, and I don't think that every other day is actually enough to get at what I want to say. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk with you in a couple days. Bye.